Was walking in the woods near my house, just exploring like any other day. I didn't think anything of it at first, but then I heard a strange sound. It was like a cross between a wail and a scream, but it sounded almost like it was coming from another world. I froze, trying to figure out where the sound was coming from. That's when I saw her. The banshee. She was floating above the ground, with long, flowing hair that seemed to be made of smoke. Her eyes were black as coal, and she was wearing a tattered, old dress that looked like it had been ripped to shreds. I couldn't move. I just stood there, frozen in terror as she stared at me with those dark, soulless eyes. I knew then that I was in trouble. The banshee let out another ear-piercing scream, and that's when I started to run. I didn't know where I was going, I just knew that I needed to get away from that creature. As I ran, I could hear her chasing me, her screams growing louder and more terrifying with each passing moment. It felt like she was right behind me, but every time I turned to look, she was just out of sight. I don't know how long I ran for, but eventually I found myself back at the edge of the woods. The banshee was gone, but I could still hear her screams echoing in my head. I never went back to those woods again. To this day, I still have nightmares about the banshee, and every time I hear a strange sound in the night, I can't help but wonder if she's come back for me. Last summer, I went on a trip with my friends Mark and Devin. We were excited to spend a few weeks in Mark's family cabin near a swamp. We had heard all sorts of stories about the strange creatures that lived in the swamp, but we didn't think much of it. After all, it was just a bunch of legends, right? On our first night there, I woke up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. As I walked outside, I felt like something was watching me. I couldn't see anything at first, but then I saw it, a creature staring at me from the edge of the swamp. A pair of glowing eyes, eerily still and floating in the murky water just outside our cabin. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. They were watching me, and I couldn't shake the feeling that they were waiting for something. The longer I stared, the more I felt like I was being drawn in. I couldn't scream, I couldn't run, I couldn't even move. After what felt like an eternity, the creature finally turned and disappeared into the swamp. I didn't tell Mark and Devin what had happened. I thought they would just laugh at me, or worse, they would think I was crazy. The rest of the trip was uneventful, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. Every time we went outside, I was on high alert, always looking over my shoulder. I didn't sleep well for the rest of the trip, and I couldn't wait to go home. It's been a year since that trip, but I still have nightmares about the swamp creature. I don't know what it was or why it was staring at me, but I know one thing for sure, I never want to see it again. I work at a pizza place in a small town. It's usually pretty quiet, but one night something happened that I'll never forget. I was taking out the trash, and as I walked towards the dumpster, I felt a shiver run down my spine. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me from the woods just beyond the parking lot. I looked up and saw a shadowy figure moving among the trees. It was too dark to make out any details, but I could feel its eyes on me. I hurried back inside, trying not to panic. My co-workers could tell that something was wrong, and I told them what I had seen. They didn't believe me at first, but then we all heard a strange noise coming from outside. It sounded like something scratching at the back door. We all froze, not knowing what to do. Eventually, the noise stopped, and we all breathed a sigh of relief. But ever since that night, I can't shake the feeling that something is watching me. Every time I take out the trash or leave the store late at night, I feel like the shadowy figure is still out there, waiting for me. I've tried to convince myself that it was just my imagination, but I know deep down that something is out there. I don't know what it wants or why it's watching me, but I know that I'll never forget that feeling of dread and unease. When I was 15 years old, my family moved into a new home that had 3 bedrooms. My older sister took the bigger room, so I ended up with the smaller one down the hallway. The hallway had a window at the end, and my room was situated next to it. While unpacking my things, I noticed a nail on the windowsill, but I didn't think much of it at the time. Later, my parents revealed that the house was previously owned by an old woman who was rumored to have performed strange rituals and had also passed away there. As I settled into my new room, I suddenly felt a cold breeze, even though it was summertime. When I looked towards the window, I saw an unmoving black figure out of the corner of my eye. Feeling terrified, I ran downstairs to tell my parents what had happened, but my father didn't believe me and went upstairs to check it out. After hearing strange thumping sounds, he found my locked door and had to use his body weight to push it open. When he finally got inside, I screamed upon seeing the dark figure looking in through the window. However, my father couldn't see anything and thought I was making it all up. Despite my persistent claims, no one believed me, but I was relieved when we eventually moved out of that creepy house.